Hi, welcome to Polly Talbot's Kitchen.
Hi, I'm Polly Talbot. Today I'm going to show you how to make gougeres. Gougeres are a French appetizer. They're cheese puffs is what they are. They're made with a very special technique. And what you're making is called a choux paste. It's a dough that they make in France for years and years and years, forever. But it's made in a very unique way, and they make it, you can have it either savory, which we're making today, or you can have it sweet, and they're just going to come out like little cheese puffs. If you make it sweet, they call them profiteroles, and they make little small ones, and they fill them with ice cream or pastry cream, something like that, with sauce on top of them. They're fabulous. They can pipe this same dough into a ring. They pipe it into animals. I mean, the French chefs go crazy with it. But it's a very, very famous dough, and it's made in such a unique way. I love to show people how to do it. So first thing I want to show you about is what I've done to get set up for you. I've done my mise en place, and this is what you need to do before you start as well. Mise en place is a French term that means, loosely translated, put in place or things in place. It's a French term that's used in restaurants and kitchens all over the world because it's such an important technique. It's the way you get set up to cook. And if you can learn to do your mise en place, you're gonna love cooking because it just makes it flow and it makes it much more enjoyable. So I wanna show you what I have for my mise en place. We're making these gougeres. We're gonna start out with some water. We're gonna put some butter in it and some salt, and we're gonna bring it to a boil. Then we're gonna add our flour all at once, stir it around like crazy people until you get all the lumps out and it's nice and smooth. Then you have to take it off the heat, and you're gonna stir it until the steaming stops. Very important point, and I'll show you that, is to wait till the steaming stops. If the steaming doesn't stop, your next step is going to be a problem because you're going to be adding eggs, and eggs don't like a surprise when you change the temperature on them. So if you don't do it properly, you'll scramble your eggs. So you beat the dough until the steaming stops, and then one at a time you're going to add in your eggs and gradually beat them until it's nice and cool. And then you're going to add a little bit of cheese, a little bit of cayenne pepper. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to put them on some baking sheets I've lined with parchment paper. If you don't have parchment paper at home, you could just use your cookie sheet, maybe just grease it a little bit. That'll be fine. So let me go over what I've got. I've got my 1 cup of water, okay? I've got my 4 eggs. I've got my cheese. This is 2 ounces of cheese, so I've grated it already. Let me show you what I did on. I use these smaller holes. I like it a little bit better on the smaller holes. So those are the ones I use to grate it. The cheese is ready. I have my cayenne pepper, and I'm going to use a 1/4 teaspoon of that. And I've got my measuring spoons right here. They're all ready to go. And this is my mise en place. My salt sitting right here, ready to go. So that's my mise en place. I'm all set. So I'm going to turn on the stove, and I'm going to add my water. And I'm going to add the butter, stick of butter. There's not much difference when you're making the cheese or the cream puffs, the profiteroles, because all you do is you don't add you add a little bit of sugar at this point, and then that just makes them sweet, and then you wouldn't be adding the cheese later. So I'm going to melt this together, and we're going to get a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Your measuring spoons, you really want to watch your measuring spoons. This is a tablespoon, this is a teaspoon, okay? There's 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon, so make sure you're reading what it says on here. Okay, so we're going to go look for a 1/2. I'm going to put a 1/2 teaspoon of salt in here. And then I'm going to be measuring out my flour while that comes to a boil. Flour it's really important to learn how to measure out your flour. Flour gets packed down in the container, in the supermarket, in the canister. It gets packed down. So actually, in a baking kitchen, you're going to see that they actually will weigh their flour because it's more accurate. But what I'm going to do here, you can see, I think, is I'm just going to spoon it lightly into this 1 cup measure, just lightly in, and then I'm going to level it off. And that's an accurate cup, okay? So that's what you want to make sure you have. If you pack flour, you're going to get much more than they intended. And what happens is whatever you're making is going to be dry. So you don't want to pack flour. That's a really important one, especially when you're baking anything. Okay, so I think you can see in this pot a little bit. I'm trying to make it so you can see everything. Okay, and you can see the water starting to come to a boil. The butter is melting, and everything else is set. So once the water is totally melted, I'm going to come back and we'll add our flour. I said once the water is melted. The water is melted. Once the butter was melted. Now I've got my water, butter, salt all there. Now I'm going to add the flour, and we're going to add it all at once. Now I've still got it over a pretty high heat, so I'm going to have to constantly stir. So you can see what's happening in here. Got some lumps, and we're going to work on beating those out. And I just want to show you what you're looking for. Trying to get the lumps out. We're also, you see that film on the bottom of the pan? That's what we want. We want that. We're looking for that. We got everything well combined right here. And it looks perfect. That's what you want. That's what you're looking for. Just a little bit more. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn off the heat, and I'm going to actually take it off the heat, and we're going to put it over here. And you see the steam? I think you can see the steam. I'm not sure. You usually can't see steam unless it's against black. But there's steam on there, and when you're making it, you'll see it. If you want to make this along with me, you certainly can be doing that. If you want to do it separately, you'll be able to stop it and go back and see, whatever you want to see. So you can see the steam is coming out. And the trick with this is going to take a good 5 minutes, maybe a little bit more, is just let all the steam escape. Okay, then we're going to start adding our eggs. I'm going to stir this for 5 minutes. You can take a break or keep stirring yours, and I'll see you in 5 minutes. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes. Yep, it's been 5 minutes, and I'll tell you how I can really tell if it's all right. I just touch it. Okay, it's just you want to be kind of just warm. And so I've got my base all ready to go. It looks great. Then I'm going to take one egg at a time. We're going to crack them, and we're going to put them into a bowl. Safer to do this. Now remember, whenever you handle eggs, raw eggs, chicken, things like that, raw protein, you got to make sure your hands are really clean before you touch it, and then I'm going to wash my hands carefully after. Okay, so I just also want to point out that the only reason that I'm still on the stove is because I put a piece of granite between me and the burner. The burner stays hot, so you don't want to keep your pot right on there. It's just a better camera angle, so you can see that a little bit better. So I'm going to take my one egg, and I'm going to put it in. And you see, at this point, if I hadn't cooled it down enough, that egg would be scrambling. But you can see it's going in. It's a nice mixture. But at first it seems like it's not going to go in, but you have to keep stirring until it does. You get your arm workout on this one. So that's the way it looks after one egg. And so it looks like it's ready. Everything looks like it's fully incorporated. And then I'm going to add another egg. I like to put them in a dish first in case you get a shell or anything. It's much easier to take it out. It just seems like it's never going to happen. There was a famous from a man. I think the chef was from the town called Brest. I think that was who he was. I'm not sure where exactly he was from. That there's a famous bicycle race from Paris to Brest, and somebody made a dessert with shaped like a bicycle tire, basically. So it's rings of the pastry cream. It puffs up and they fill it with ice cream, and I think there's caramelized sugar on that one. There's all different kinds of versions, but or pastry cream inside, and then they pile it on, and that was called a Paris Brest. So those are fun to make too. There's almonds on the top. It's really beautiful. This is also the same dough that you would use to make eclairs. So it's the same procedure. I know this part seems boring, but I just want you to see that it does go in. These are great. Now these will be served as an appetizer. You can make them really tiny, or you can make them just a little bit bigger. I make them pretty small, usually 2 or 3 bites. What's nice about them is they puff up. You could actually put something inside if you want. These little small ones are usually just eaten plain, but you could also make them for lunch. You could put tuna salad or egg salad or something like that in it. There's all kinds of things you can put inside. Just a little bit more stirring. I think it's ready for our last egg. I just wanted you to see this because it does seem like it's not working. It's not working, but it is. This is working. Some people I've actually seen pastry chefs, instead of doing the whole thing in the pot that you cook the butter, that you melted the butter and the water together with, they take it and put it in a mixing bowl and use the mixer. So that makes it a little bit easier on your arm. I love the rubber spatulas because you can really get everything all around the sides. You see a little bit more egg in there. A little white that's still staying in there. Clean hands, and I have a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. I'm going to sprinkle that in. And now I'm going to take half of the cheese. Remember, you're not going to put it all in first. You're going to take half the cheese. We're going to stir this in. Another reason you want to make sure it's not hot, because your cheese will melt. We just want to incorporate the cheese in here. Now that recipe will call for Gruyere cheese. You can use Jarlsberg cheese, or you can use a Swiss cheese. You can use, at this point, you can use any kind of cheese you want. I am actually, because I had it, I'm using a really lovely sharp cheddar cheese of Cabot's, so that works fine too. So you can use whatever you want. I wouldn't use like a mozzarella cheese. It's going to be a little bit more moist than you want, so you might have to change the proportions. But now we're all set with this. And we're going to put it on our cookie sheet. So this batch is going to make about 24. There's a little trick when you're doing this. You're going to use 2 spoons. And if you have a little tiny ice cream scoop, some people like to do that too. But the first trick that I like is, what happens is once you start putting your batter on here, it lifts up like that. So what we're going to do, we're going to put a little bit of dough batter. I'm not really sure what to call this. We're going to put a little bit under each corner. And that is going to keep our parchment paper from pulling up every time we try to put anything on it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do 24 of these about this size. Now it's important to make them all a similar size. If you make them all different sizes when you're baking them, some will be done early and some will be done later. That goes for all of cooking. If you're roasting carrots, you got to make them all a similar size. Whatever you're making, you should make it a similar size just because that's how it will cook the best. You don't want to be fishing something out. I actually was just making beets yesterday and I had to leave some in longer, and it was just a little bit of a pain in the neck. So if you make everything all the same size, you're going to be much better off. So we're going to fill both of these sheets. And then what we're going to do is, and I just wanted to remind you also, I did preheat the oven. We've got a 425-degree oven. I'm using convection, so I'm not going to need to watch it carefully. The convection does a nice job on the choux paste, anything you make with the choux paste, because it helps to really dry it out and get you a nice color and nice puffing. But so you want to preheat your oven ahead of time and then get everything set, like I said before. So I'll come back when we're a little bit closer. Now, a couple of things, especially when you're making the profiteroles that you're not going to put any cheese on top of. If you want to just wet, this is just water, a little bit of water, just wet your finger, and any of those little peaks that are sticking up, you want to just kind of knock them down, because what happens is they'll burn in the oven because those little tiny peaks on the top. So just take your finger, wet it a little bit, and knock those down a drop. Now this is, the next step is to put a little bit of this reserved cheese, because you had, remember you had about, I think you had a half cup of cheese, so we have about a half of it here. And we're putting this on the top of each one. Just a little bit. I've done these when I forgot the cheese on top, but it does make them just slightly cheesier. I noticed that the cheddar cheese, sometimes when you use it, they like a little darker color. No matter, that's ready. And then we'll finish this one off. A couple of the most important things when you're cooking and your mise en place and keeping yourself clean. Wash your hands a lot, because that's one thing we've learned a lot lately, is how to wash our hands. You want to make sure everything's clean. You don't want to transfer any bacteria to the food. You know, if you flip your hair or rub your face or anything like that, you just always want to go back and wash your hands. This would be a fun thing to bring to somebody's house whenever we can finally go to people's houses again. Fun little thing to bring, because you can make it ahead. And then it looks like these are all ready. And now I'm going to put them in my preheated oven. You're going to hear the fan. The convection oven is with the fan. Okay, I'm going to put them in here. And I'll be back. They're going to take about, there's about, what are they, about 10 minutes. And then I'm going to turn the oven down a little bit. I want to show you a couple of things that I'm doing. I just now turned the oven down to 375, so it's going to need a little bit longer, another 8 or 10 minutes. But what I did in the meantime, I have my cooling rack out. I have my container I'm going to serve them in out. I have my pot holders ready. Remember, with pot holders, you never want, if they get wet, don't use them, because they're going to, when you hold something hot with wet pot holders, it creates steam and it goes right into your hands. So be really, really careful with that. And then, so we got the pot holders, everything ready for when they're out, because you don't want to be like standing there with a tray of profiterole of gougeres and not have any place to go with it. So you want to get yourself ready. And then, really more importantly, I think if you can see right down over here, what I've done is cleaned up. So I had time while that was in the oven, and so I washed all my dishes. So now once they come out, I only have the sheet pans to worry about, and that's it. So I'm all set. So it's really important to clean up as you go. Don't leave a mess for somebody else to clean up after you. So nobody's going to appreciate the food if they have to clean up the kitchen, unless you got that wheel going. So a few minutes and they'll be out of the oven. Now the next step, you're going to have to be really careful with this, but what you're going to do is you're going to take a knife and you're going to pierce the sides of these puffs. You see they're nice and beautiful brown, golden brown. You don't want to undercook these because they will tend to, if you undercook them, they will collapse once they come up, because like I said, they get hollow on the inside. So I'm just going to give them a little puncture, and that's going to let the steam out. I'm going to turn off the oven, and I'm going to let them cool in the turned off oven for about another 10 minutes. They're not going to get cold because it's pretty hot in here, I can tell you that. So we're going to pierce these. Now they're going to stay nice and crispy when you do this. This is a step, a lot of recipes I've seen don't always do this, but this is an especially nice tip to do so that they stay nice and dry inside. So we'll see them in just a few minutes, they'll be out. Okay, I took the first one out, I'm taking the second one out. They're totally finished. And you can see why they call these little cabbages, right? They look like little cabbages. Chou means cabbage in French, so these are like little cabbages. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take them off and we're gonna put them to completely cool on the cooling rack. Whenever you're baking anything and you want it to stay crisp, you want to put it on a cooling rack, because the cooling rack is going to allow the air to go under it as well. If you leave them on the cookie sheet or even on a counter, they're going to kind of steam as they cool, so you will have a little bit soggier product. So it's a good idea to do this. A couple things I wanted to show you. You can see the ones that there are a couple that I missed when I was knocking down the little points, you see, so they do kind of get a little too dark on those points, but as you can see, they're absolutely beautiful. I'm going to put them in my basket when they're cool, and I hope you do make these. I would love to show you some more things, so enjoy and let us know how you liked it. Bon appetit!